anyway, when it comes to I said I had 2 tracks on here above me. Well, that's the first track. The second track is on CD2, which is the studio outtakes. Now, to get at this one, I'm going to go to a backstory just so you can kind of understand how annoyed I am with this track, okay? Now, the Laws, they recorded some demos back in 1986 on 4-track, and it was Lee Mavers is the chief law, singer-songwriter if you want to call it, but he writes the songs, he sings them, he plays rhythm guitar, and these songs became his baby for the 1986 demos. They managed to get a postmodern sound, which was suitable for the group. It worked out like lightning in a bottle, so to speak, when you get that magic demo recording. And then the band was signed the following year in 87 to Go Discs, and then recorded a single and tried to attempt the album. But with it being in the late 80s, they went from 4-track to, 32-track or whatever it was, and digital was being introduced as well into the studio. So that raw organic sound that they had from the 4-track analog recordings was now, the sound was domesticated, clerical, and ATS-ified, and made the song sound, in Lee Mavers' own words, thin and spiky. And they were trying to get that, as he's described, like a softer, harder sound that groups would have back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And, like a warm, thicker sound that analog usually produces. So they'd spent many years in and out of studios and with different producers, engineers, and even band members trying to recapture the magic of those 4-track demos. And this happened right up until their last recording session. When this album came out, the band weren't happy with it, even this, and disowned it. But there was a session that kind of goes down as kind of special in the Last community, because before the session that ended up on this album, there was the session before these sessions, which is in 1989. The band went to their manager, which I think is Andy McDonald, if I'm correct. He managed to find a producer called Mike Hedges, and he had a original desk from Abbey Road, which caught everybody's attention. And the band was sent to Devon, which is Andy McDonald's parents' house, to set up and record the album there. And by all accounts, from what I've read in books and magazines, the band shone at these recording sessions. It was the best and easiest recording session they had. And the most important thing is that Chief Law, Lee Mavers, was initially pleased with these recordings once they were done. So this had never happened before. I've read in books and a magazine that he was so happy he was going around kissing people, saying, we've done it. And you can even hear him championing the sound of these recordings with Taylor Christian on Key 103 radio session that they did. And that's where the band kind of shone, was on radio sessions where they would just be a stripped-down version of themselves with one microphone above and capture them. And they'd always shine like that. I think that they really should have had like just one mic when they recorded their albums, and maybe even more like a mono sound, now I think about it. The late 80s production just didn't suit them, and they managed to get this to work. And whether it was a placebo effect because it was an original Abbey Road desk, or I don't know, but they were all happy. So when the recordings were done, the drummer Chris Sharrock and the bass player John Power decided to go on holiday and just have a break, and thank God everything had finally worked out and to get away from it all. But when they returned from the holiday, they'd found out that Lee had scrapped the tapes. Now, myth there's a lot of myths out there that saying that he scrapped the tapes out of spite because he wasn't invited on the holiday as well. But I don't know, I found that hard to believe because they'd been so long sorting after this sound. And if they'd finally got the sound that he liked and was happy with, I don't think he would have scrapped those tapes. So something must have happened, maybe in the post-production, that when you start adding filters and compression and noise gates, and maybe the sound was just starting to change. And he wasn't happy, that's for sure. And he scrapped those tapes, and then they went on to do this with their last recording session that they hated as well. But the thing is that session, those tapes weren't just scrapped, they were allegedly destroyed. So you couldn't even hear them if you wanted to. But one track did make it out. And that track ended up on the last single, Feeling. And it stated here's IOU alternative version. Mike Hedges is credited on here. So that IOU song managed to get out until 2008. Around 2008, there was an engineer that was up in his attic, and he came across a cassette, and when he played it, it was mixdowns from the Mike Hedges sessions. So these were digitized and spat out onto another Lars release. I forgot to grab, I'm just going to grab it now. It came out on this Lars deluxe version. City 1's on the CD album, everybody knows. City 2 is the Mike Hedges album. So the Mike Hedges album, what's it actually like? Well, first of all, there's one standout track for me, and that is Timeless Melody. And it is absolutely superb. When I first heard it come on, I was blown away. It's magnificent. And when it finished, I was initially gutted that it didn't end up being released as a single. It trumps the eventual single release, which I do have here. This is a version that we don't have on the album as well. Came out in 1990. And, you know, when I first heard that, you know, I had the album first and I heard that and I thought that it was a good song. But after hearing the Mike Hedges version, it makes this version sound like a tuneless racket. That's how much I love the Mike Hedges version. And it is a shame, it's a crime that it wasn't released. The Timeless Melody Mike Hedges version is on here, is one of the extra tracks that was put on this singles collection on disc 1. Timeless Melody on the release version, and also Clean Profit, which is a different mix than the version that's on here. So maybe there was a couple of different mixes on the cassette was found in the attic. I don't know. I think Timeless Melody finds slightly different as well, but it just could be due with the mastering. But with Clean Profit, it definitely is a different mix. So that was always curious as well. And, you know, there's some tracks that on the Mike Hedges album that I actually don't think are better than what ended up on the album. Two examples are Son of a Gun and Feeling. I was disappointed by those versions on the Mike Hedges album. At the end of the Mike Hedges album, there's Looking Glass. And Looking Glass is at the wrong pitch. And it's a very stripped down version compared to what ends up on the album. And then with it being a slower pitch, I kind of thought maybe they were going for a Syd Barrett vibe. And it kind of works, I guess. And so, the comparison to these Mike Hedges versions and the album, you know, some are better, some aren't. I mean, Knock Me Down sounds a bit more like how the band played it live. And Doldrum, there's a kick-ass version of Doldrum on here. But I also like the album version. But I think what stands out on the Mike Hedges album is that Lee Mavers' vocal delivery is a lot more sincere, and there's a lot more passion in his voice, because he was obviously still very excited at the time. And I think by the time they did the final version here, he just sounds a little more grainy and tired. And I really feel for the guy, actually. You know, can you imagine going through the same songs through different studios and producers over and over again, trying to recapture what you initially recorded with your demos and just not hitting it? I mean, and then still never doing it either. I mean, yeah, that's gotta be rough, man. That's gotta be rough. But the vocal delivery is it's good on all these songs, but just some of the mixing is a little, yeah, maybe it is an experimental stage when they did the mix down on these. I don't know, but yeah. So yeah, it's worth checking out for sure. So yeah, CE2, the track that I've got beef with. When I got this, I was looking through the booklet. I was curious to see where these outtakes are from, and they're all in chronological order, which is very cool. But I come across a song which is called Freedom Song, and it says in the notes here that it's 1989, and it produced is Mike Hedges. So I was like, well, hang on, I thought all that was found was released on here, but there's an outstanding track. So yeah, I was pretty excited to know there was another Mike Hedges song to listen to, and Freedom Song as well, which I didn't really appreciate Freedom Song until I heard the 4-track demo, which was first released on their first ever single, This Is Way Out, and it contains, on the B-side, there's 2 4-track demos, Liberty Ship and Freedom Song. And Freedom Song, the version on here, it is killer. It blows the album version out of the water. It just sounds much more powerful, fuller. It's great. And the album version is just like Lee described, thinner, spikier, and the vocals is just, yeah, the guy's just tired, man. He's tired. And they were apparently just they were apparently just guide vocals anyway, which is even more salt on the wound, knowing that your guide vocals are what's out on the released album. Ouch. So yeah, I was excited to find out about the Mike Hedges version. To my dismay, it again is in the wrong pitch. And why that version is in the wrong pitch is beggars belief, because it does not work. Like with Looking Glass, it kind of worked, yeah. But with this song, no, it doesn't work. It's all slow. Why is it all slow? But it absolutely kills the song. It's just so annoying. I mean, did that happen on the mix down onto the tape? Or was this done in the mastering? Surely when you're doing the mastering, you realize that this is the wrong pitch. Maybe we should pitch correct it. Or maybe that's why it wasn't included on the initial release with all the other versions. I don't know. But I just couldn't believe it. The disappointment and annoyance still burns to this day. It makes me want to start side suplexing people on pavement curbs. It makes me want to break into the offices and start doing some back raking. People get paid to do this, don't they? And they have to check things. I've seen a couple of pitch correct versions on YouTube, but it shouldn't be down to YouTubers to come and correct their stuff. The people should be doing this on the mastering process, making sure it's the correct pitch, for God's sakes. So yeah, that's just really bugged me. I mean, the first one, with it being a different mix, they should go, hey, look, I might sound like I'm bitching, I'm ungrateful. It's a different version. So yeah, I'm not ungrateful about that. It's a different mix, so we get a different mix. That's cool. It's just the fact and sabotaged like the original 1988 mix. That's what annoys me. And then here, with this with this freedom song being the wrong pitch. It kind of spoils a brilliant box set. But, hey man, what can I do? I just like to find the person responsible and suplex him. Anyway, let me know if the same things happen to you. Do you have a box set out there and there's like a track or two on there that aren't what they say they are? Or they put an inferior mix on there that's also maybe like a wrong tempo or wrong pitch or whatever. Anything else that you've come across, I'd like to know. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I'll see you in the next one, where I'll show you another one where it has a track on it that really makes you want to start side suplexing somebody onto a pavement curb. Right. Till next time.